But I believe that God has given me power, and there's the power of the Holy Spirit. When you lift up Jesus Christ.
Franklin Graham, the man who stepped forward to carry the legacy of his father, Billy Graham, has spent decades building his own reputation through Samaritan's Purse, the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, powerful sermons, and humanitarian work around the world. Yet despite his influence, controversy has continued to surround him, fueling intense public debate. Now, after years of criticism and scrutiny, those controversies have reached a dramatic turning point, leaving many wondering whether this marks the end of his legacy. Join us as we uncover the truth. The final chapter of Franklin Graham. For many people watching from the outside, it appeared that Pastor Franklin Graham's public future had already been decided. With every new controversy, critics claimed his ministry had reached its breaking point, while supporters insisted he was simply standing firm in his faith. As pressure continued to grow, many began wondering whether this would become the final chapter of his public life and whether it was time to say goodbye forever. Although Franklin refused to step away, the mounting criticism only fueled speculation that his influence would never recover. In 2005, a massive gathering in New York attracted enormous crowds, reminding many people of the historic crusades Billy Graham had led decades earlier. After Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans in 2006, Franklin traveled to the city to offer prayers, deliver emergency aid, and encourage families who had lost almost everything. He also became closely connected to one of America's darkest moments in modern history, standing alongside firefighters and rescue workers at Ground Zero, praying while smoke still filled the air and debris surrounded them. Yet despite these powerful acts of compassion, his outspoken comments about religion and politics repeatedly placed him at the center of intense national controversy. One of the biggest disputes erupted after he described Islam during a 2001 interview as a very evil and wicked religion, arguing that some of its teachings were linked to violence and terrorism. Those remarks immediately sparked widespread criticism, especially after he was invited to deliver a Good Friday sermon at the Pentagon in 2003. Muslim organizations strongly protested his appearance, and more than 75 Muslim employees at the Pentagon signed a petition asking officials to cancel the event. Despite the growing backlash, the Army allowed the service to continue as planned. But the controversies refused to fade away. In 2010, Franklin's invitation to speak at a National Day of Prayer event was canceled after critics accused him of promoting anti-Muslim views. Franklin and his supporters argued that he was not spreading hatred, but was instead being punished for openly expressing his Christian beliefs. Around the same period, he wrote a controversial New York Times opinion article opposing the International Criminal Court's efforts to prosecute Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir over genocide charges in Darfur. Franklin argued that arresting al-Bashir could threaten the fragile peace agreement that had brought Sudan's devastating civil war to an end, while critics accused him of placing political concerns ahead of justice for the hundreds of thousands of victims. Later, during a CNN interview, he reignited the controversy by claiming that true Islam could not exist peacefully in America. He criticized certain forms of Sharia law and warned that extremist Islamic movements wanted to expand their influence throughout the Western world. By 2010, Time magazine quoted him describing Islam as a religion associated with war. Those remarks later contributed to visa problems in the United Kingdom between 2017 and 2020, where officials feared his appearances could increase tensions and encourage hatred. As each controversy unfolded, public debate only became more intense, leading countless people to wonder whether the verdict against Pastor Franklin Graham had already been written, whether his public ministry had reached its final chapter, and whether this was truly the moment many believed would mark goodbye forever. After years of criticism and controversy, what major event finally pushed Franklin Graham into the spotlight and led to his sentencing? Keep watching to find out. The controversy that put Franklin Graham in the spotlight. Reverend Franklin Graham, the son of the late legendary evangelist Billy Graham and one of America's most influential evangelical leaders, has once again found himself at the center of a major public debate. Known for his close relationship with Donald Trump and his connections to the former president's administration, Graham has spoken out about the controversy surrounding an AI-generated image that many people interpreted as portraying Trump in a Christ-like way. However, Graham insists that Trump did not knowingly attempt to present himself as a religious figure or compare himself to Jesus Christ through the image. The controversy began when Trump shared an AI-created image on his Truth Social account on Sunday. The image showed the president dressed in a white robe with a red sash, while a glowing hand appeared to be stretched out and placed on the forehead of a man lying in a hospital bed. Because of the religious appearance of the image, many viewers immediately questioned whether it was meant to represent Trump as a Christ-like figure. However, Trump later explained that the image was simply meant to show me as a doctor. After the image attracted widespread attention and criticism, Trump eventually removed the post. In a statement shared with The Independent, Franklin Graham defended the president and pushed back against what he described as ill-intended speculation surrounding the image. His response was noticeably different from several other religious voices, including some conservative evangelical leaders who accused Trump of crossing a line by using powerful Christian symbols in a way they believed was inappropriate. Critics argued that the image appeared to make a political statement by connecting Trump with sacred religious imagery. When I looked at the illustration, I didn't jump to the same conclusion as some people did, Graham explained. There were no spiritual references, there was no halo, there were no crosses, and there were no angels, he added. I think this has become much bigger than it needed to be. There is so much ill-intended speculation surrounding it. I believe his opponents are always searching for any opportunity they can find to criticize him and make him look bad. Graham further explained that he did not believe Trump would knowingly depict himself as Jesus Christ, saying that such an action would have been completely inappropriate and would not reflect his intentions. I am thankful that the president made it clear that this was not what he believed the AI-generated image represented, Graham said. He believed it showed a doctor helping someone, and once he became aware of the concerns and reactions surrounding it, he immediately removed the post. Could Franklin Graham's deep involvement in politics have contributed to the controversy that eventually led to his sentencing? Stay tuned to find out. Franklin Graham's political journey. In December 2015, Franklin Graham made the decision to leave the Republican Party and officially become an independent. Explaining his decision, he said, "This is an example of why I have resigned from the Republican Party and declared myself independent. I have no hope in the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, or Tea Party to do what is best for America." His decision came after a Republican-backed budget continued providing funding for Planned Parenthood, an organization Graham had strongly criticized because of its involvement in fetal tissue donation practices. Graham compared those practices to Nazi atrocities, a statement that immediately sparked debate and drew strong reactions from both supporters and critics. His decision to leave the party reflected a wider frustration among many evangelical Christians who felt that traditional political groups were no longer fully representing their beliefs and values. Franklin Graham's relationship with Donald Trump also became one of the most discussed parts of his public life. In April 2011, Graham appeared on ABC's This Week and revealed that Donald Trump, who had recently expressed interest in seeking the Republican presidential nomination for the 2012 election, was the candidate he preferred. However, during an MSNBC Morning Joe interview on February 21, 2012, Graham also praised Rick Santorum, saying that Santorum was the politician who most closely represented what he described as Christian values through his words and actions. He described Santorum as someone who was Christian at heart. When discussing President Barack Obama, Graham said that Obama was a fine man, but he stated that he could not personally know whether the president was truly a Christian. When asked about Mitt Romney, Graham explained that many Protestants did not view Mormonism as part of the Christian faith, which created further discussion around his religious views and political opinions. In June 2016, Graham spoke to a crowd and expressed his disappointment with both major political parties, saying, "I have zero hope for the Democratic Party. I have no hope for the Republican Party. "I am running a campaign to put God back in the political process." Despite previously criticizing both parties, Graham later became a strong supporter of Donald Trump after the 2016 election. In November 2016, he told the Washington Post that he believed God had played a role in Trump becoming the next president of the United States. Graham said, "I could sense going across the country that God was going to do something this year. And I believe that at this election, God showed up." The same newspaper reported that after Trump's victory, Graham posted a message on Facebook questioning how political experts failed to predict the outcome. He wrote, "Did God show up?" and explained that many people in the media were confused because they could not understand how Trump won. Graham argued that many political analysts believed the Trump-Pence campaign had almost no chance of succeeding, but he believed there was what he called a God factor behind the result. During Donald Trump's first presidential inauguration, Franklin Graham chose to read a passage from chapter 2 of Paul's first epistle to Timothy. The passage called on people to pray for everyone, including kings and those in positions of authority, so that people could live peaceful, quiet, and godly lives. Graham later expressed a similar belief after Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election. In an interview with ABC News, Graham said, "God put him in that seat. All authority in heaven has been given by God." Beyond the controversies that have surrounded Franklin Graham, let's take a closer look at his ministry journey and understand why these debates have carried so much weight over the years. Keep watching to find out. Franklin Graham takes over his father's legacy. Franklin Graham's journey into ministry officially began in 1982 when he was ordained by Grace Community Church in Tempe, Arizona, a non-denominational church. However, his connection to Christian service and humanitarian work started several years earlier in 1975, when Bob Pierce, the founder and president of Samaritan's Purse, invited him to join him on an international mission trip. According to Graham's autobiography, that journey became a turning point in his life, exposing him to the realities of global ministry, poverty, and humanitarian work. During the trip, he visited missionary and refugee camps, hospitals, and met with government officials, church leaders, and missionaries across several countries, including South Korea, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Thailand, India, and Nepal. These experiences gave him first-hand knowledge of the challenges faced by people around the world and played an important role in shaping his future work. In 1979, after the death of Bob Pierce, Franklin Graham took over as president of Samaritan's Purse, a Christian humanitarian organization focused on helping people affected by poverty, disasters, and crises around the world. Under his leadership, Graham worked closely with the organization's board of directors to expand its operations and strengthen its mission. He modeled many of Samaritan's Purse's policies and procedures after the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, BGEA, the ministry founded by his father, the legendary evangelist Billy Graham. During his first year leading Samaritan's Purse, Franklin Graham managed the organization's operations from Boone, North Carolina, while many administrative responsibilities were still handled through the organization's California office. In 1980, the headquarters was officially moved to Boone, where Samaritan's Purse joined together with World Medical Mission under the same roof. This move helped create a stronger foundation for the organization's humanitarian efforts and allowed it to expand its global outreach more effectively. In 1982, Franklin Graham's ordination marked the official beginning of his career as an evangelist and preacher. At the time, some people believed he was being prepared to eventually take over his father's worldwide ministry and become Billy Graham's successor. However, Franklin rejected the idea that he was simply following in his father's footsteps. Instead, he explained that he believed God had called him to carry out his own unique mission through Samaritan's Purse and his personal ministry work. In 1989, Franklin Graham held his first major evangelistic event, continuing the tradition of large Christian gatherings that had made his father famous around the world. Like Billy Graham, he began preaching to large crowds in stadiums, arenas, and other major venues across different countries. Over the years, Franklin Graham expanded his evangelistic work significantly, speaking at more than 325 outreach events across all 50 U.S. states and territories, as well as in more than 55 countries worldwide. Since beginning his evangelistic ministry in 1989, Graham has delivered sermons in nations including Mexico, Poland, Vietnam, Italy, the United Kingdom, and many other locations around the globe. During the early 1990s, Franklin Graham became the second vice chairman of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, BGEA. He was the only one of Billy Graham's children to serve on the organization's board. As his involvement in the ministry increased, speculation grew that Franklin could eventually become his father's successor and continue leading the famous evangelistic organization. However, Franklin repeatedly stated that he could never replace his father or lead the ministry in exactly the same way Billy Graham had done, because their personalities and approaches were different. A major moment in Franklin Graham's rise came in 1995 during a crusade in Toronto, when Billy Graham experienced a serious medical emergency after collapsing because of a bleeding colon. Although organizers attempted to find another preacher to take his place, Billy Graham insisted that his son Franklin should step forward and deliver the message. This moment demonstrated Franklin's growing role within the ministry and showed that he was becoming the person his father trusted to continue the family's evangelistic legacy. Several months later, in 1995, Franklin Graham was appointed vice president of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. According to Billy Graham's biographer, Franklin's increasing leadership role within the BGEA was initially met with some disagreement among longtime employees. Some staff members questioned the decision because they believed Franklin's personal lifestyle and approach were different from the organization's traditional conservative culture and expectations. Despite those concerns, Billy Graham remained chairman and chief executive of the organization during this period, while Franklin continued gaining more experience and taking on greater responsibilities. But beyond the controversies, is there another side of Franklin Graham's legacy? Or will history remember him mainly for the debates that defined his public image? Keep watching to find out. The humanitarian side of Franklin Graham. In February 2023, after a devastating 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck Turkey and Syria, leaving behind widespread destruction, thousands of injuries, and countless families struggling to survive, Franklin Graham's humanitarian organization, Samaritan's Purse, quickly responded by deploying a 52-bed emergency field hospital to Antakya, Turkey, a historic city that was once known as Ancient Antioch. The emergency hospital was strategically established in the parking area of a damaged regional medical center, allowing it to serve as a critical healthcare facility in an area where many hospitals had been destroyed or severely damaged. Within just its first week of operation, the field hospital provided medical treatment to more than 530 earthquake survivors who were suffering from injuries caused by the disaster. The emergency medical facility was designed to handle serious injuries and provide advanced care to victims who had nowhere else to turn. It included 2 fully equipped operating rooms, an intensive care unit for critically injured patients, an X-ray department for diagnosing internal injuries and fractures, and a pharmacy to provide essential medications. More than 100 medical professionals, including doctors, nurses, surgeons, and support workers, participated in rotating teams that changed every 2 weeks to ensure that the hospital could continue operating around the clock. Franklin Graham personally traveled to the disaster zone to visit the field hospital and witness the impact of the organization's relief efforts. During his visit, he emphasized the hospital's important role in treating victims suffering from severe orthopedic injuries, including broken bones, crush injuries, and trauma caused by being trapped beneath collapsed buildings. Among those receiving treatment was a 14-year-old boy who had survived after spending more than a week buried under the remains of a collapsed structure before being rescued. Franklin Graham described the level of destruction caused by the earthquake as unbelievable. However, he also emphasized that Samaritan's Purse's mission would not end after the immediate emergency response. The organization committed to providing long-term assistance to survivors who had lost their homes, belongings, and access to basic resources. Beyond his humanitarian efforts and public ministry, Franklin Graham's personal life has also remained closely connected to his family, faith, and long-standing commitment to service. Franklin Graham married Jane Austen Cunningham of Smithfield, North Carolina on August 14, 1974. The wedding ceremony was conducted by his father, the world-renowned evangelist Billy Graham, creating a significant family moment within the Graham legacy. Together, Franklin and Jane have 4 children: William Franklin Graham IV, commonly known as Will, Roy Austin Graham, Edward Bell Graham, and Jane Austen Graham Lynch, also known as Sissy. Over the years, Franklin Graham and his wife have also welcomed 13 grandchildren into their family. Today, Franklin Graham continues to live with his wife in the mountains of Boone, North Carolina, where he remains actively involved in his ministry leadership, humanitarian efforts, and global outreach work. Could these be the end of Franklin Graham? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for staying with us as we looked into the sentencing of Franklin Graham and the controversies that led to it. But could there be hope for him? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen to explore more stories.